Everybody, welcome back to my channel. I am Adorkable Rachel, and it's time for another episode of Rachel Reviews, so let's just hop into it. I am such a dork as of late because out of all the movies that came out in the past several months, this is the movie that I was looking forward to the most. Not Bumblebee, not Aquaman, not Mary Poppins Returns. Stan and Ollie is the movie that I have been waiting with bated breath for. Because Laurel and Hardy is just something that I hold so close to my heart. It's something we used to watch together as a family. They made me laugh so much, and even when I was just a kid, I was so entertained by their personalities and their comedic style. And even to this day, when you watch their shorts and their movies, they are still so funny. So when I heard a long while back that they were finally going to make a biographical film about this legendary comedic duo, my heart was in my throat. Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy were a comedy duo that were very popular between the 1920s and the 1940s, and they are considered by many to be the greatest comedy duo that ever existed. This movie is an interesting take on a biographical film though, because it doesn't exactly cover their careers as comedians. They don't show you the early years, they don't show you how they rose to stardom, or even really how they came to work together. In fact, the movie starts in 1937 when they were basically some of the most famous people in Hollywood at the time. But we don't stay there for long, because after one scene, we then fast forward 16 years to 1953 when they're in the twilight years of their career and they're about to embark on a world tour in the hopes that they'll soon star in another movie together soon. So I know that I said I was really excited to see this movie, and believe me, I was. However, I could tell from the very first trailer that this was gonna be a really predictable movie. It's based on actual events, sure, but it's a movie about two has-been comedians who go on this tour and see that they're not bringing in the crowds like they had hoped for, and they spend a good majority of the movie reflecting on their career and also fighting about it. Yeah, you can kind of see how this is gonna pan out, right? But I still had high hopes that it would still be a very enjoyable film, despite it being a little predictable and cliche, and it is. It really, really is. The plot may not have a lot of surprises, but what does make the film so entertaining is everything else. Especially our leads, Steve Coogan as Stan Laurel and Jon C. Reilly as Oliver Hardy. This is another case where the casting is pretty much perfect. Our lead actors just got so much down from the comedians, like their mannerisms, their comedic timing, and how well Laurel and Hardy worked off each other. And even though we're seeing Laurel and Hardy later in life, through our main actors, we're still experiencing the many years of work and fame, as well as the hardships of being has-beens. And I also love that they got their speech patterns down pretty well too, because Oliver tended to have a slightly flowing speech, and Stan, being British, had a bit more staccato in his vocal rhythm, and you really hear that from Reilly and from Coogan in this movie. And if you get a chance, you really should check out the videos they have on YouTube where they transform the actors, because the makeup is amazing. It is uncanny how much they look like Stan and Ollie. And what also makes this movie work so well is that while it's not exactly a knee slapper, it's still really funny and has some really legitimate emotional moments, and I really do think that's all thanks to the interplay of both Jon C. Reilly and Steve Coogan. In the movie, we do see some pretty amazing reenactments of some of their routines, both in the past when they were filming them and on stage when they're on tour, but also within the film, they're writing a new movie that they're hoping to produce and star in. And for me personally, some of the best parts of the film was watching them write this screenplay together. Because actually, little known fact, I even just found this out recently, Stan Laurel was responsible for writing most of their material. And of course, Oliver Hardy, pitched in here and there. A lot of it was Stan Laurel, but I think that a lot of their comedy routines they helped write together. But anyway, they're writing the screenplay and they're talking about the gags, the jokes, the dialogue, and that was just really sentimental for me personally, seeing them just be so passionate about their work. After all these years, they're still coming up with material together, and I also love that they just seem to kind of experiment with it together and go for what makes them laugh, you know, rather than trying to be like, hey, this is what everyone will think is funny. No, they make each other laugh, and that's how they know that something's working. I mean, they were comedic geniuses. They knew what funny was. They knew what would make people laugh. And even when they're bogged down and tired, you can still see the love and enjoyment that they have for their work, and it's just so beautiful to watch. And of course I should have seen this coming, but there's actually some really cool, clever nods to their comedic acts in this film too. And I don't mean when they're doing their routines on stage, I mean when we're just seeing Laurel and Hardy being Laurel and Hardy. Like for example, when they check into their hotel, they do something very similar to a bunch of their acts where they're like fighting over the bell. And in some of the scenes you have to wonder if maybe it's a little bit forced, if, you know, it's a little confusing as to whether that's them being them or if they're just trying to be funny for the clerk lady, but it's still really cute and humorous. And I think the most clever example is a throwback to one of their most famous shorts where a piano is constantly falling down a flight of stairs, only this time they're at a train station and they accidentally drop a trunk down a flight of stairs. I mean, that part in the movie is just funny on its own, but if you're a fan, you get the reference. And I know it's a biographical film, it's possible some stuff was made up. Honestly, it's really not for me to say whether any of this was, you know, dramatized or if some stuff was just made up for the sake of a theatrical experience. I did some research and I didn't really find anything that said whether or not this was on the nose or kind of sort of made up in some places. It actually turns out that there is a book that a lot of the stuff in this movie is based on called Laurel and Hardy, The British Tours. But honestly, I'm really not gonna bother because I looked into it and it's expensive as hell if you try to purchase it. And I'm not trying to be picky, but I did find one thing that's conclusively inaccurate, and I'm only mentioning this for the bragging rights, really. It turns out actually that during that final tour they were on, I don't think they were working on a movie. Remember that screenplay they were working on during the tour? Well, actually, it turns out that they were working on it on a previous tour in the late 1940s. And to my knowledge, they weren't working on a screenplay at all during this particular tour. So that is something that happened on a tour they were on. It just turns out it was on a different tour in the past. But hey, this is a biopic, and sometimes for the movie experience you do need to change up a few little things. You need to interlude a few timelines. You gotta make sure this is their last tour for dramatic effect. But I'm still really glad that they did put that in the movie because we got to see more of Stan and Ollie just being passionate for their work together and just working together in general, and it was just so lovely. There's so much love in this movie! And I'll be the first to admit, it's not a fantastic movie by any stretch. Like, I don't think it got snubbed at the Oscars or anything like that, you know, except maybe the acting categories. But as someone who grew up watching this duo and just having such a sentimental attachment to them, I get emotional watching this film because I can see that there was just so much passion behind the scenes when producing it. In the end, this movie, it is what it is. Stan and Ollie is a predictable biopic about comedians and what they experience on their final tour together, but the performances, relationships, comedy nods, and the weight of the accomplishments and hardships are what make this movie so charming. And it just brings everything together in a complete whole. Not giving anything away, but at the end, there's just kind of this sense of acceptance and peace, and you really want that for these guys when you have to see the crap that they're dealing with. And of course, when we know that this happened to real people, and people that a lot of us love, by the way, it just makes the whole experience even more personal. If you're a fan of Laurel and Hardy, or even just a fan of comedy in general, you have got to see this movie. It's so simple, but sometimes less is more. It's very emotionally charged and witty and so full of heart, and watching Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy in this way, it's gonna give you a lot of feels. And I know we can't predict these things, but I hope that by this film having some kind of wide release, people are gonna see it and they're gonna become more aware of who Stan and Ollie were. It would be so amazing if even more people were aware of what they did for comedy in film. It's not an over-the-top masterpiece of a film, it's exactly what I thought I would get, and I could not ask for anything more. So those are my thoughts on my personal much anticipated film, Stan and Ollie. So now I want to know, guys, did you get a chance to see it? And if so, What did you think? And if you haven't seen it, go see it. Also let me know, are you a Stan and Ollie fan? Are you just finding out about them? If you are a fan, what's your favorite shorter movie? Or go check them out and let me know what you think of them. Also let me know, are there any movies coming out soon or sometime this year that you want me to review? Well, go ahead and leave your comments below. Be sure to like and share. And if you're new and like what you saw here, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And also be sure to hit the little bell button down there to get notified when new stuff comes out, because I make new videos every week. Bye, Adorkable Buddies. I'll see you soon.